we're talking about the time that, so I had mentioned the time that I got lost with my grandma and her Playtex bra over at the Sea Colony high rises at 4 years old and had to take her back, and I got lost. But Sean has a better story because he said it. Just go ahead and tell us.
I'll see.
No, come on.
Okay. So I was in 4th grade, maybe 5th grade, and I cannot remember for the life of me why it was just me and my Uncle Mike. Because there was no, I can't think of any good reason why my parents and my sister would have been gone.
I can think of many good reasons. Your parents and your sister were gone when you almost died in the snowdrift, too. Your parents and your sister, maybe they were imaginary, but go ahead. So you,
All editorializing aside,
he was in charge of taking his Uncle Mike to the gun club in 5th grade,
so
4th or 5th grade.
I knew that there was.
But I'm sure that your parents knew where the gun club was.
No, they didn't. Why would they know where the gun club was?
Okay.
I knew there was one near my friend Mike Jones, who lived above a liquor store. On, I can't remember, it was whatever the road was that came out of Point of Rocks. I remember that. And he lived above a liquor store with his mother, who was divorced. And just as an aside, Mike had the biggest...
So your parents did know somebody who was divorced, Mike Jones' mother.
No, they didn't really know her.
And she was always giving her child like Crown Royal bottles to play with.
Not a Crown Royal. He had a shelf that ran the whole perimeter of his bedroom with liquor miniatures and like commemorative liquor bottles on it.
And he was like in 4th grade.
Yeah, he was in my grade. So, anyway, so I knew there was one near his house because I'd seen it before driving by there.
But we still haven't understood why like the situation where Uncle Mike is sitting on the porch and he's like, I wish there was a gun club nearby.
I think that actually is pretty close to what the truth was.
Well, Sean, do you know if there's a gun club nearby?
I need to go shooting.
And you're like, oh, of course I know.
He had taken me skeet shooting near Philadelphia once before. And we had a great time. And I was actually pretty good.
So maybe he was like, hey, Sean, it'd be cool if we could go shooting again.
Right, but he wanted to go skeet shooting because we could have gone shooting anywhere on the farm, but he wanted to go skeet shooting. And I knew that there was a gun club that had like skeet things near my friend Mike's house. And
is skeet where they throw up the clay pigeons?
The clay pigeons, right.
That's what they do on cruise ships. I did a lot of that on cruise ships, actually.
Yeah, which is fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
So
I could never hit anything, but
I was actually really good at it. Like,
my dad was good at it.
I was
probably
kind of
from the Army.
I was kind of a natural, actually. But
okay.
I hit a lot of clay pigeons. I killed a lot of clay pigeons. But so anyway, so we go driving. And I get him there. We get there, and it's closed.
Your familiar gun club.
Yes.
Your familiar skeet.
But better than that, then I remembered thinking, I know another one. I'll take you there. So we started driving, and we drive, and we drive, and we drive. And at one point, like we go through Point of Rocks again, and there's train tracks there because it went to the North American Housing Plant where they made all the prefab houses and all the trusses for houses, like probably a lot of the houses around here. And a train had stopped on the tracks, and we're sitting there. It's like 1 billion degrees. This was sometime in the summer, and I remember this is like the coolest guy thing I think I'd ever seen at the time. There's this car in front of us, like this big muscle car, these total like redneck greaser guys in it, and they had like a 12-pack on the rear window. It was this, it was like a muscle car, so it was a sedan, but it had like one of the shelves by the rear window, and they had a 12-pack up on there, and it was so hot. We're sitting there, we're right behind them, and I think we were in my uncle's El Camino too.
Oh no, my Uncle Mike had an El Camino.
Oh yes, he did. He was the first. He was the first adult in my family I ever smoked in front, because I could smoke at the El Camino. Not in 4th grade. But we're sitting there at the train tracks, and we're stopped, and everybody's just sitting around like, oh, well, this is a train. And these beer cans start exploding in the back of this car because it was so hot, because they were up on the window. And these guys get out of their car, they're all like, oh, they take the beer out. And my Uncle Mike gets out of the car, he's like, because he was like a real guy. He's like, well, you're gonna throw that beer around and throw some back here. These guys are like, oh, fuck yeah. And they throw him a beer, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
And then what starts playing? Carry on my wayward son.
Basically, yes, the soundtrack would have been Carry On My Wayward Son. And the other thing was, now that I think about it, the beer was probably like 100 degrees. It was probably like the most disgusting. It was probably like.
But Uncle Mike was doing his Uncle Mike thing.
Oh, he was doing his thing. He's like cracking beer with these guys, these greaser guys.
I have to interrupt here and just say that one of my quotes that Marcy and I had in our quote book as a child was, "Everybody has an Uncle Mike," and it's true.
Yes.
Everybody has an Uncle Mike.
I even have a cousin Mike too. So.
Well, yeah, okay, but everybody has an Uncle Mike. Okay.
Yes. So, and he looked like, and Uncle Mike back then looked just exactly like Kenny Rogers.
Nuh-uh.
But with less hair on top. But he had the beard.
My Uncle Mike looks like Pat Metheny.
Right. But he looks like a rocker.
He's a rocker. Yeah.
No, my Uncle Mike looked like
country music star.
He looked like a country, and this is when he had come back from Arizona, and that's why he had the El Camino, and he'd wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots.
I only knew one set of people who had an El Camino. They were Maddie's across the street neighbors, and what the woman would always be screaming at the man, Tommy, get in the truck car. Get it in the truck car.
Oh no, it was the El Camino.
Yeah, well, I love El Caminos. I've always wanted an El Camino.
So Uncle Mike drinks a beer with these guys. Finally, the train, this big freight train, like moves along on the tracks. So we get going. So we're back on the road again. We're driving. And I'm like, it's right up here. And he's kind of looking at me like, okay, you've been saying that for miles now, Sean. Okay, we'll keep going. We get up there. I'm like, oh, it's right up around the curve. He comes up there, and it's the same fucking gun club. We made this like 15-mile circle around the county, and come back and sat at a freight train for like a half an hour, and then we get there. It's the same gun club. It's
Carry on my wayward son.
Fuck yeah!